What's up, freaks? This is just me, and today we're gonna be ranking the 8 mandatory poses of Dennis the Big Bad Wolf from worst to best. And we're gonna be considering the poses throughout the bodybuilder's whole career. That means if a certain mandatory was strong when the competitor was starting out, but as they went on, the pose became more of a disadvantage to them, we're not gonna place it as high because it lacks consistency. Okay, with that out of the way, let's get into it. First, let's give a brief introduction. Dennis Wolf was a bodybuilder competing as one of the top guys from the mid 2000s to the mid 2010s. He finished as high as third at the Olympia and placed really well in multiple Arnold Classics and winning one of them too. He had a tall frame and was known for a great X frame created by his round quads, small waistline, flaring lats, and huge delts. And now let's get to the poses. First, we have the side triceps. In my opinion, the weakest pose for the big bad. I don't even think it looks that weak. It's just a bit underwhelming and lackluster. It's not horrible. Dennis's shoulder and traps still look great, although it has to be said, he's in desperate need of a better, more pronounced horseshoe to match that. His triceps isn't tiny, but it's not cut at all, making it look like it disappeared in this pose. In Dennis's earlier years, his lower body looked okay, but when he learned to display his hamstring properly, his side leg looked really awesome, like you can see on the right of the screen. So that is a bit of an inconsistency on that part as well. But either way, not the strongest pose for the wolf. He wouldn't be dominant enough to beat anyone in this pose except from the guys that have a protruding midsection, in my opinion, with all due respect. And the second worst mandatory position is the front double biceps, as I see it. In this pose, you can immediately notice a bunch of flaws on Dennis's physique, from the skimpier and non-symmetrical arms to the asymmetrical, highly inserted lats and smaller calves. Dennis's calves have always been quite a weak point for him, never anything to write home about, and after he injured one of them, it went away completely, but that's a factor in every single pose for him, so it's nothing against this one in particular. So this pose looks very imbalanced and lacks symmetry, but I put it ahead of the side try because at least Dennis has a huge wow factor with that crazy X frame, because that cannot be denied. And the rear version of that pose, the rear double biceps, finishes 6th, because it's surely not Dennis's strongest pose either. He looks great through the delts, traps, and he's really wide. I won't deny that, but the back development, especially the high lats and the lower back, leaves something to be desired for sure. The lower body is fine, but the overall effect of the pose isn't top notch. That being said, I don't think it's straight up a weak pose. He doesn't look unimpressive in it. He just doesn't look very perfectly shaped or aesthetic. And fifth is the ab and thigh pose. In the ab and thigh, the big bad looks more than respectable with his huge sweeping quadriceps and tiny waistline for a gentleman of his size. His lat taper is also applaudable. He looks great. The chink in his armor is gotta be the six pack, which looked pretty good in some shows, but especially later on, it was not quite separated enough. The abs looked oddly shaped, and then his head would look like a herniated belly button, which certainly isn't eye pleasing. So, not a bad flow in this pose, but the aesthetics are not quite enough for this shot. If you get what I'm saying, he's not bad, but he's not world class by any means either. And now let's get to the second half of the poses with the fourth place finisher, the back lat spread. This is a mandatory that looks pretty great on Dennis thanks to his flaring, well developed wings and sufficient development of his traps. He's got a V-taper like no other, with the small waist, and the legs ain't looking bad either from the rear. They look conditioned. And the third best pose of Dennis is the side chest, in my opinion, in which he looks beast-like but really aesthetics as well. He looks really neat in it, if you know what I mean by that. He hits it so well and effectively for the most part, looks great through the delts, which are ginormous and capped. The chest has got a nice shape and a nice display too. The midsection is sucked in, not protruding, and the quads look great and big. And later on, when Dennis sat down and had a good hamstring display, his hams looked out of this world too. The hang looks unreal. I already mentioned that in the side triceps. So let's move on to the runner-up, and it's gotta be Dennis's notorious grab most muscular. And he didn't just stick to this variation. I've seen him do the hands clasped and hands on hip too, really well on different occasions. That being said, the grab was probably his most effective, most muscular, and certainly the most legendary and powerful. But any version of the pose highlights the big bad's strong points, which are his massive and separated delts and mountainous traps. His arms show pretty well too, and they look well developed and ripped. The chest, if the wolf's dancing it, it looks strided and thick. Sometimes it looks a bit too relaxed though and not so detailed, but the torso looks defined and so do the quads, which are still visible, so we can see the mad sweeps there, right? And finally, look at the way he's hitting the post. He looks confident and full of power, if you ask me. He's bending over a lot. If he stood more upright, I don't think it would hurt, but he can afford to do that with his tall frame, and this bending over makes his shoulders and traps look bigger. So I don't think his execution is hurting him. I think it's good. And let's get to the strongest pose. I have the front lat spread. In this pose, Dennis looks absolutely top 5 of all time worthy, believe me. Yes, he's got the underdeveloped calves, but that's the only blemish. His quads, although quite strangely formed, are so huge and the sweeps are incredibly round. Along with the small waistline, wide clavicles, and big flaring lats, they create an X-frame like no other. Dennis's abs and pecs usually look okay as well, and his delts are massive, thus look great too. So overall, this is such a powerful pose for the big bad, if you ask me, and definitely one of, if not the best of his mandatories. But be sure to let me know down in the comment section below your own ranking. I would like to hear that. And also let me know what you thought about this video. Did I make any mistakes or was it perfect? Probably wasn't. So let me know too. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to watch some Dennis Wolf videos and also like and subscribe. Enjoy the rest of your day.